Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today. We love to see this card in its upright. You know why? Because this card was in its reversal yesterday. Communication, clarity, planning. I know some things right now have felt like they've been slowed down. My friends, we were in Taurus season. Everything slows down a little in Taurus season. But one of the things that we see is this is allowing for a heightened degree of productivity. This is the result of a lot of the work that's been happening since that Scorpio full moon. Masculine and feminine energy right now in the divine union frequency. What have we seen been happening over the last few weeks? A lot of unpacking, a lot of internal investigation and exploration, potentially even that moment or that opportunity of being able to address and face something from the deep past, wherein you are now allowing the point of being so far deep into the heart of the divine union frequency to a certain extent is allowing a level and degree of confidence to be able to face something with a change in perspective. So that's why we see even now that a lot of that energy moving towards that point of discomfort within the self, navigating those darker aspects or navigating those places that were hard to look at or hard to see, or something that you may have been holding as a wound for a great deal of time. Why do we do that? It's like going into your own self with a flashlight, right? Because this is the energetic equivalent of feeling like taking that sense of healing that you're experiencing in the present and wanting to bring it back to a past situation or scenario. The reason that you're doing that, this is that result. And it doesn't feel so much like an activation point, because we saw that for a lot of the energy doing this work right now, it doesn't really feel like the type of work that is like changing one's own direction or changing one's own affirmation. It's almost that moment that the clarity of the past is being received by the clarity of the present, and that change of perception to a certain extent is the gift, or it is the benefit, because it's that sense of mental clarity that you receive going forward. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. We are also seeing that this is that level or degree of productivity, because one of the things that we saw that was being navigated right now for a lot of the energy in separation is especially if these are new energetic connections that are occurring during this time, had to do with navigating and mitigating any feelings of trepidation. What was the feminine energy expressing to a certain extent during this time towards masculine energy, even at a point of healing? Some of the feminine energy over the last few weeks kind of came into these encounters of experiencing masculine energy that almost felt like they were halfway healed. Someone that almost felt like they had half their foot out the door. Someone who was almost like halfway on their own journey. That was very difficult and very challenging for a lot of the feminine energy, because that was that moment of almost wanting to reach out and do something, but almost feeling that affirmation of, again, holding on to their own pathwork, of not pushing out past their own comfort level to be able to meet the needs energetically of another. This is the feminine energy that's almost doing a lot of work in articulating what they desire to a certain degree in order to facilitate that sense of productivity, that sense of positivity, that sense of true alignment in relationality to that open act of expression. And we see even now that for the feminine energy, that ability to talk through something, if in separation, is validating a lot of that feeling of recognition in identifying and building those plans going forward. And a lot of this is also coming right now from a lot of energy that we see in separation that is feeling like you're receiving some sense of closure. But where is that closure coming from? Is that closure coming from opening up the past, going back towards the past? No. A lot of the clarity that energy and separation is recognizing right now is closure is something that you find moving forward. So a lot of this energy right now, even in the act of expressing something that they may have felt like they were currently experiencing or going through, the ability to communicate on it in such a way that it feels like there's a valuable lesson that's been learned, that in itself is creating that sense of clarity as well, because it's almost driving that sense of purpose forward. While for masculine energy, if this is masculine energy, if you've been doing that hard work of challenging yourself, pushing against your own envelope, doing that work of being energetically open, being energetically vulnerable, expressing to the feminine your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, your plans. That's that moment that the masculine may be feeling some of that breakthrough in like attracting like, in being able to feel that sense of putting it forward and not feeling any energetic rejection if someone doesn't aspire and desire the same things that you do. Almost coming into that moment of peace and recognizing that that just is a sign of a lack of alignment in terms of one's own manifestation goals. These are energies that are effectively finding one another in separation via positive, productive communication. And it does feel like it is slow growing. It does feel like there's a lot of energy here that feels like campfire, because that's that moment of building an energetic connection via the perception point, which always feels a little bit slower because it takes more time to make sure that you are on the same page. While for masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union, this is why we see that this is some of the most challenging work right now. Because while we see that the energy right now in separation is having a lot of that sense of understanding and recognizing and feeling some breakthroughs in the realm of communication. And while we see that the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency right now is having some breakthroughs on their own personal pathwork of the past, given the perception of the present, for the energy right now coming into divine union, this is the most practical application of this. This could be more about that feeling of trying to overcome hurdles and obstacles. The hurdles and obstacles may feel like they're more tangible right now, because a lot of the energy right now that's coming into divine union, that ability of creating something from nothing, the space that you're creating in partnership, it's almost that moment that feels like you have to come into a point of accommodation, of trying to like navigate a lot of the hurdles around you that you feel are creating that sense that makes it harder to be in connection. So we see even now that that is being resolved through planning, through building a lot of plans right here to be able to have that clarity of insight going forward. Second card in our 5-card spread for today is Judgment. And so we see even now a lot of this card coming up heavily the last few days, a lot of decisions potentially being made right now, big decisions. For masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency, you'll recall that one of the things that we've been talking about right now is not allowing oneself to be triggered by the experiences of the insecurities and wounds of the counterpart. A lot of this energy over the last month or so has gotten much closer. They've built that sense of energetic intimacy via V. And when we build that sense of intimacy, that's almost being articulated in that point that we see sides of the other that we don't typically show. These are energies that have been doing a lot of work in integrating those insecurities, those wounds, not trying to reopen a wound, but almost allowing for that sense of holding something that may have occurred from outside of the divine union frequency, bringing it in with you. But even in that modality of doing so, that is that moment that you're allowing a level and degree of healing via the way that you are navigating something, the way that you are carrying something. And much like we just spoke about, what is happening right now that is further enhancing and building these ties, the ties that bind right now for a lot of the energy coming into divine union. Trusting in the judgment capacity of the counterpart energy, right? When we choose that the good partnership, one of the things that we appreciate is that sense of someone being able to espouse that sense of sound judgment in relationality to how we go forward here. And what we see effectively for a lot of the energy coming into divine union right now, that ability to navigate hold someone else's insecurities, not even the way that one would navigate it for yourself, but almost with the mindfulness in relationality to how someone else might prefer or choose something to be held. That is that moment that feels like that firming up of the connection, because that's almost that moment that you observe in another, someone who's always thinking on your behalf, right? And that's not thinking in a way that articulates thinking and doing what you feel is best for another, but almost taking their own mind view or their own perception into the context of your own thoughts and ideals and aspirations. So we see even now this is a positive sign for any of the energy coming into divine union right now that has been experiencing any of these hurdles, because this is the amplification. And you'll even notice that yesterday we articulated on the fact that for the energy that was like potentially experiencing any frustration in relationality to wanting to do something, right? Wanting to go in the same direction, but having different ways to go about it. This is almost that moment that feels like a blessing, because that's that moment that when someone wants to do something in a way that you wouldn't necessarily do it, instead of getting reactive, if you leave yourself open to that possibility and experience, what you've effectively just done is you've allowed someone to show you what might be best described as an energetic blind spot, seeing something in a way that you might not necessarily have seen something before, that adds a heightened level degree of clarity. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union, this is a lot of that path work and being able to see something from the past in a different way that has changed your approach or opinion on how you're carrying something. And for a lot of the energy right now, that in itself is the sign of a huge breakthrough, because that ability of being able to take some feeling of fault or blame off of yourself, to reconsider something, like that is something that changes your own perception going forward, because this is almost like in a moment of healing a wound from the past and immediately attaining a higher degree of wisdom in the process. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation, this is a lot of energy that is feeling that sense of confidence coming into play. Not the fact that the past wasn't something that you may have aspired for something different to occur, but seeing the ability of learning path work that you are applying in the present, pushing one's own envelope, doing something in a different way. The magnitude of experiencing and learning from a lesson while also receiving back something that is different in that moment is almost that moment that builds a sense of energetic catharsis and peace, because that is the moment that you can feel that sense of trusting one's own judgment in relationality to doing something in such a way that you feel like you're seeing and experiencing a positive, productive outcome. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here 7 of Cups talking about choices. So for a lot of the energy and separation right now, a lot of robust conversations occurring right now, a lot of choices to be made is what we're really seeing. There may be a lot of decisions being worked through today. We're hitting this Gemini season with we're just hitting it, and we're just hitting the ground running here. And I'm not surprised to see this, because I will point out, the quality and characteristic of Gemini is the gift. Like I said, Gemini having that ability to see multiple angles of something, being able to see multiple possibilities, that ability of feeling the facets or the dichotomy of the choices that you make being amplified right now with this type of energetic frequency. So what are we effectively identifying during this time? Even in separation right now, this could be that moment of exploring a lot of new options, a lot of new possibilities. And a lot of that is coming as a result of a lot of that steadfast work that you may have experienced during the Taurus period that may have felt more like that determination, that having to put one foot in front of the other. This is the opening up of the possibilities that occur when you're able to do that work in that capacity. So this could be a lot of conversation today in relationality for energy and separation in terms of what not just one's manifestations today, but leaving oneself fully open to all the different possibilities through which a manifestation can bring itself forth in your own life. And one of the things that we almost see here is a lot of the energy right now in separation is being challenged with that sense of curiosity, right? It's like almost that moment when we recognize that when we're having a manifestation that we're doing properly, it's not something that we say, it can only come through like this, right? Because that's that moment that our own myopia doesn't often allow us to see the blessings that are around us. So we see even now that ability of feeling and seeing something in a different way is creating a feeling of hope for a lot of the energy and separation, because it's that expansive point of not only seeing something that you may have felt like you really had to push through and seeing the positive, fruitful, productive work of that work, but also feeling all of the different ways that something had come towards you at this time. This is almost feeling to a certain extent like one of the challenges that we see here may have to do in the realm of curiosity versus pickiness right now. While for masculine and feminine energy, I'm not surprised to see this, because what did I identify was happening right now for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency? I told you we had a little bit of that Albuquerque effect happening yesterday, right? What's that Albuquerque effect? The difference between a conflict and an argument, right? Two energies that may want the same thing, want to get to the same place, but they may have very different ways of going about it. Yesterday, it may have felt more like a challenging space. You may have felt more of that rigidity, potentially because we were moving out from Taurus to Gemini. But today we see a little bit more of that openness, like blossoming in relationality to keeping that sense of leaving oneself open to new possibilities. So this could even indicate that a lot of energy yesterday through a challenging conversation, as long as one was able to maintain a point of like curiosity in terms of how one reaches a manifestation goal, particularly even learning how to like navigate and work with the counterpart. That is that moment that almost feels like that blossoming, if you will, because that's that moment that like you may have two, like energies have two different ways of thinking about doing something. And then that two becomes like six, becomes eight, because the minute that you introduce the idea of doing something in a different way, it's almost like allowing that creativity to burst forth in it. While for masculine and feminine energy, remember what I talked about with that unpacking yesterday? Remember I said that there's a little bit of this like slower process that's happening for energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, because if this is something that you were healing from like way long ago, you're recognizing that that change in perception doesn't just have an impact on how you may experience or have seen a particular experience that created a wound in the first place, but then you have to kind of recatalog or go through everything prior to that point to see how that holding that wound in that way may have created a place where your own perspective may have been a little bit clouded, or may have been held in the point of having that wound. We see even now that there's a lot of that introspection that's being reached for a lot of the energy deep in the heart of the divine union, as you take that change of perspective and you put it towards a lot of other experiences or circumstances that you may have had in the past with that new clarity of intention. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here King of Cups in its reversal. We've been seeing over the last few days, again, yesterday was a little bit easier for the masculine energy. Yesterday, there was a little bit more of an easement there. Today, we see that there may be a little bit more of a, this is not surprising, because we saw that a lot of the masculine energy, especially the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, what was being required in order to understand or heal some kind of deep, long-held energetic wound. A lot of the masculine energy may have recognized that something that you were holding on to from the deep past, you never allowed yourself to feel the vulnerability, especially if these were spaces or places that you were holding yourself accountable for, because it was easier than accepting the vulnerability of saying something happened to me that I could not control. So even now we see that this is why some of this work needs to be done slowly, because this is that unpacking that sometimes leads to like emotional overwhelm in some spaces or places. Because for the masculine, one of the reasons that we see that the masculine sometimes pushes that feeling of letting oneself feel vulnerable is that moment that one feels the anxiety about being able to control one's own emotional outpouring. So we see even now for a lot of the masculine energy, if you're having a recognition point in how not feeling something or not allowing yourself to fully feel something from an early point may have had some kind of impact and experiences that you were carrying forward from that point. This may feel a little overwhelming because it's that moment that you almost feel like re-triggered in allowing that vulnerability to come in around other experiences that you may have kind of built that armor upon as well. So this could be a lot of that deep healing that the masculine is working through now. And sometimes, like, again, much like any emotional space, some days it can feel more emotionally overwhelming than others. But what is the masculine energy doing right now to help themselves through that work? They're reminding themselves that it's okay to feel. That nothing bad happens so long as we just allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling. What happens is when we try to circumvent feeling something, when we try to find an unhealthy coping mechanism, or we try to subject others to how we're feeling, that's the only time that emotionality becomes something that becomes more like something that feels like a weapon instead of a gift. So we see that a lot of the energy right now of masculine, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, is almost working through that ability of allowing themselves to feel the expansion point of just feeling what they're feeling, but also recognizing the ability of not doing anything as they feel it. Like just almost sitting with the feeling is helping a lot of the masculine energy right now heal from things that they didn't necessarily allow themselves to feel at the time that they occurred. Feminine energy, you may be working with a lot of masculine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency that is going through this process right now, or you yourself are navigating those situations and circumstances wherein you necessarily experienced a wound because of, again, a masculine energy that wasn't allowing themselves to feel. Do you see how these energies are recognizing these points in their own past work that are building on the perception of the present with the clarity that they can now take to those past experiences? So we see even now that this is the feminine energy having that sense of easement, that if this is the feminine that felt like they were having too much of having to work too hard, trying to fit that sense of being, never feeling like they're doing something right. But instead of the feminine internalizing that, if the feminine starts to externalize that and say, what is that right I was trying to fit into? That is, again, the feminine energy feeling the weight of potentially externalizing that aspiration of what they were trying to rise to too much towards the masculine to such a degree that it felt like it was too adaptable. And if that is due to a masculine that hasn't done their own healing work, that can feel like a feminine energy having that sense of never being good enough because it feels like they're never making the grade because they're always becoming like they're always in that moment of having to be adaptable for masculine energy that hasn't done the work of navigating their own emotional experiences before subjecting others to them. So you see how, again, we're getting into a little bit of this like chicken and egg work in relationality to healing that becomes the expression of saying the way to heal this is to say, the buck stops here. As soon as I heal this in ourselves, then that's not a way that we perpetuate that, because that's the moment that we're able to recognize and see those characteristics in ourselves that we don't want to have that moment of creating that space in others. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, this is a lot of healing from the wounds that may have occurred from outside of the divine union frequency. This doesn't feel as metaphysical right now. It may feel more tangible because a lot of the energy right now, I told you, coming into divine union is feeling that strong overwhelm of compassion in relationality to how much they are feeling for the counterpart energy. It's a little bit more emotionally difficult for the masculine to navigate right now. Specifically because if this is masculine energy that feels like they're coming into some deep healing by coming into the divine union, if that's a masculine that's feeling like the gift of being in the divine union is feeling the safety and security of being able to be articulate and open about their emotional expression, this is almost that masculine energy that feels like that outpouring, particularly because that's that moment that it may feel like the divine union frequency is the only place wherein they have that ability to do so. So we see even now that can be that can sometimes feel a little overwhelming for masculine energy in that modality, because not only is the masculine energy feeling that sense of being able to emotionally open up only via the divine union frequency, but also they're doing a lot of work in trying to integrate the wounds of the counterpart energy at the same time. So that's almost feeling the sense of everything they're feeling and also feeling the wounds of the connection that feels a little energetically overwhelming at this time. But what is the masculine energy doing? Much like the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, letting it become a heart expansion. Right? Letting that be a moment of feeling like, again, that ability to hold space, just your ability to feel something and recognize that one doesn't need to feel like you become reactive in that feeling. You can just allow yourself to feel the full breadth of what you're feeling. That is what's helping a lot of the masculine energy coming into the divine union frequency right now ground through some of those emotionalities. While for feminine energy, much the same is true right now. If you are seeing a masculine energy that is opening up to you in that capacity, this is a feminine energy that, again, isn't creating that space or place wherein the feminine is feeling this is not the feminine that is like matching masculine in that modality, right? If the masculine is feeling the energetic overwhelm, this is the feminine energy that's working on their own energetic resilience, right? Because these are the energies that work as counterparts to one another. So when one needs to be soft, the other is able to become more resilient. So what is the feminine energy doing right now to help the masculine if they're going through any of that? This is the feminine working through their own ability of being energetically resilient, helping the masculine with that point of perspective, helping and being able to almost take some of that energy and showing the possibilities potentially to the masculine in relationality on how to navigate what they are feeling. So again, even now, these energies coming into divine union, feeling a lot of that emotional, like over emotionality, but doing a lot of work to process it and to navigate through it, but not subjecting one another to it in the process. While for masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is a lot of the energy in separation that is feeling like they're having breakthroughs in communication, that are building clarity on past path work, wherein they might not necessarily have had that level and degree of easement. If this is feminine energy that is in new communication, and they're being very open and honest about what that is that they want, and they're experiencing a difference in possibilities. This is the feminine energy that may be feeling like they're experiencing a breakthrough. And if there was anything about the past wherein the feminine felt like they couldn't be this open, they felt like they couldn't be that communicative, that's the feminine recognizing that was not necessarily the fault of the feminine so much as it potentially was being in connection with a masculine that had not done the work in being able to navigate through their own emotions in such a way that would allow for that sense of curiosity and relationality as it relates to talking about things with such a high level and degree of openness. While for masculine, if you are also having conversations like this is also a moment that you may be recognizing and identifying that your own ability to be vulnerable, your own vulnerability not to become reactive, but almost to move towards feminine with a sense of curiosity, is also allowing you to effectively heal things from the past as well. Because we see even now, the only thing that may be a little bit of a challenge here for a lot of masculine in separation is, again, working through some of that energetic regret space. If this is something that you're just learning how to do, or this is something that you're just starting to be able to shed your own armor and being your most authentic sense of self with the feminine, it can sometimes feel very energetically overwhelming even at the moment that you're having a breakthrough, because you're suddenly recognizing and realizing all of the possibilities of the past wherein you could have brought forth this earlier. I'm going to say this again, if you're masculine energy going through that in that capacity, that's not a moment of allowing yourself to feel overwhelmed, but recognizing that we can only learn lessons at the time that we're ready to receive them. A lot of this energy in separation, feeling some of that frustration, but also recognizing that there are breakthroughs that are happening right now that are allowing for that clarity, which can sometimes be a little overwhelming. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is one card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our 4 of Wands in its reversal. This is intriguing because what do we have here? We've got our 2 of Wands and our 4 of Wands in its reversal. So, like I said, one of the challenges that we're seeing right now has to do with plans. It has to do with practicalities. And we see even now for energy and separation right now, one of the things that may be occurring that, like, for the masculine specifically is, I want to say it's a bit of a hurdle right now for masculine in separation, because I want to say it again. When masculine and feminine both feel that need or desire to move forward towards a manifestation goal, masculine has a tendency of wanting to move quickly. Feminine when they feel that, they start to slow down, right? And so we see even now that even in the expression right now of what the masculine is feeling, we almost see there's a lot of, I want to say, care and concern that the masculine is putting towards feminine at this time. Why? Because I can see the fact that for a lot of the masculine energy that's working to try to build a healthy connection with the feminine, what effectively is happening is masculine is working through how to articulate to the feminine what their manifestation goals are without the masculine like having the feminine feel like the feminine is a means to an end. So what we effectively are identifying to a certain extent here with masculine, and I actually have to say that for a lot of the masculine energy that is working in this way, like a lot of that work is being facilitated by, there we go. Thank you. It's being facilitated by the masculine articulating that sense of adaptability. Thank you. Of adaptability here, because this is again the masculine that's trying to walk that line of recognizing and help. And this is masculine. Okay, this is masculine energy in separation that is in tune enough with their own feminine energy that they don't want the feminine energy to feel that by speaking to the feminine about their manifestation goals, that the feminine energy themselves are just a means to an end for the masculine. So what we see that a lot of the masculine energy in separation is doing is they're articulating about what they aspire for in the future, but there is not that rigidness in relationality to the shape that takes, almost approaching the feminine energy with a sense of curiosity and openness to explore the possibilities of what those manifestation goals look like that feel to the feminine like the sign of true communication. Because this is the masculine energy that's almost, again, coming towards the feminine with a point of emotional vulnerability in such a way that they're not trying to dictate what that looks like. They're being very open to the possibilities of going in the right direction, but being very adaptable as to the shape that may take. For feminine energy, seeing a masculine that is able to utilize this type of pathwork of energetic discernment, it can feel a little emotionally overwhelming because it's that moment of feminine feeling the sense of a masculine that knows what it is that they desire and aspire for, but are very conscientious in terms of also being very intentional with whom they are moving towards those manifestation goals with. So even now, that's the feminine that feels that same sense of resiliency that is demanded upon their part, because that's the feminine that needs to articulate to the masculine their needs. So you see, even now in separation, these are energies that are meeting one another, and there's that hesitancy in coming forward in this way, but they're working, challenging themselves in this way to be able to come to what feels like that meeting point between what they both aspire and desire in relationality to that direction, but also being adaptable at the same time. So very beautiful energy right now in separation. Masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union. I mean, this is something that you probably have been doing for quite some time if you're coming into divine union. This has more to do with the frustrations of what you feel is inhibiting or preventing you from coming into a better point of energetic union. This is a lot more the focus of the tangible. And we see even now that for a lot of the energy coming into divine union, the hurdle is the amplification of choices right now, which is why we see so many of these energies coming into divine union, navigating and speaking very robustly about the opportunities and choices and possibilities of how to navigate what feels like they are hurdles or limitations at this time. While for masculine and feminine energy, deep in the heart of the divine union, this is that work I told you of reframing experiences from the past with the context of the perception of the present. whatever this breakthrough was that you may have had that required that sense of healing something from the deep past, that's that moment that it just doesn't have an impact on that one experience or moment. That change in perception builds almost like a domino effect, and looking back on a lot of different experiences. And we see to a certain extent, this is almost like the energy recognizing all of the unpacking that occurs at that moment as you see something from a different perception, and it changes your perception of everything that came after it. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Two of Wands in combination with our Judgment card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Queen of Wands in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. This is why this work can feel like it is a little energetically overwhelming. If these were spaces and places from the deep past where masculine recognizes that they were carrying a wound because they didn't allow themselves to fully experience the emotionality of something from the time that it occurred, having that recognition point sets off that chain reaction and potentially seeing other places and spaces in one's own path work wherein you might have done that. Or when you may have pushed someone away at a time that you may have drawn them closer because you were trying to protect yourself from emotionally feeling something. So for the masculine, that moment of understanding or clarity coming around certain experiences can feel somewhat energetically overwhelming. While for feminine, if these were spaces or places wherein you recognize that you've been carrying a wound because you were holding yourself to a standard that you didn't even create for yourself, but a standard that you felt like you were trying to ascertain and meet from the energy around you, that can create a moment of energetic frustration for the feminine, because that's that moment of the feminine feeling the frustration of not having the emotional resilience that would have allowed that to be easier prior to this point. Do you see both of these energies feeling the frustration and having not recognized something sooner that sometimes feels energetically overwhelming, right? So we see that point of understanding of the self, that recognition point, when you have that moment of recognition, it can feel very overwhelming, because it's that moment that you experience that you say to oneself, like, I wish I had seen something sooner, or I wish I had understood something sooner, because that's that moment that is being amplified in wishing that ability to like work on one's own connection to the counterpart energy within the self could have allowed for something to be easier at a sooner time. For masculine, that's a lot of that integration of the emotional space, the feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. While for feminine, that's that frustration of not coming into the sense of understanding one's own masculine energy or one's own energetic resilience prior to that point. But both of these energies feeling that sense of, again, recognizing that we understand and we learn something only at the time that we're ready to integrate it. So a lot of that energy, trying to remember that hindsight is perfect because hindsight is broken. That's not the ability. We don't want to hold, we want to let that be a moment that feels like it is educational without holding ourselves too overly energetically accountable for something that we couldn't see or understand at the time of experiencing it. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, a lot of that work, I want to say, is being facilitated to a certain degree as feeling more of that sense of energetic frustration in the tangible space, because we see that for a lot of the energy right now coming into divine union, a lot of like trying to navigate these hurdles, a lot of trying to navigate these frustrations, a lot of this work, it feels very frustrating. It feels very triggering, right? Masculine, even now coming into divine union, that ability to like open one's own heart space to the feeling of coming into divine union, it feels like your heart has to get like bigger. There like has to be more room for it. So what's the masculine doing? They're making more room in their heart space. But more so for anything for masculine, a lot of the work today is trying to ground through a lot of that emotionality, right? Because I can see even now that there's something about the masculine that often tries to compartmentalize what they're emotionally feeling, because masculine, it feels like it's harder for the masculine to feel the energetic overwhelm and still prioritize like the path work going forward right now. This is a bit of a work in progress for masculine energy that's working on this. It's okay to feel like that. While for feminine, it's a lot of that same feeling. Feminine energy trying to be energetically resilient to a certain extent, but being very mindful in relationality to, I want to say that this is a little interesting for the feminine, because I see even now that this is a feminine that's still working through those spaces or places of questioning themselves. So this could be, I want to stress, this could be a very active day, but potentially a very triggering day for both masculine and feminine energy. And I'm saying even now, masculine, just be very conscientious in expressing your emotions at this time. Don't come into that space or place of subjecting others to your emotions. And feminine, this is this moment today of, I want to say, for the feminine energy, this is a lot of the feminine energy, like having those moments of doubting their own self, or potentially doubting their own, like having those moments of feeling that anxiety in relationality to being misunderstood or having their actions misinterpreted. So we see that there's a little bit of this like clumsiness that might need to be addressed at this time from both of the energies. And it has to do with like trying to integrate that path work. Well, for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, a lot of this, it feels more supported, because we see to a certain extent, a lot of this energy is encountering one another at times where you're in the process of doing this work, right? And this work isn't perfect. There are good days, there are bad days. There are days that you feel like you're like feeling that conviction and that commitment forward on the path. There are some days that you start questioning yourself. And so we see to a certain extent that for a lot of the energy navigating forward in that way, that could be the expression to a certain extent of, again, I want to put it in such a way that it's like the feminine energy feeling that point. Okay, this is it. For separation, this is feminine almost saying, recognizing and not wanting to feel like they're dictating the way that something needs to be, right? And there's masculine that's almost looking towards feminine and saying, I don't want you to feel like you are a means to an end, so I don't want to dictate the way something is. So even now we can see that there could be that moment that both of these energies are like pushing their envelopes in relationality to how to navigate communication forward. That requires that sense of building upon the feeling of energetic strength in something that you may feel like you're not very good at. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Judgment card in its reversal and our Seven of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? Two cards coming out to clarify. We've got here our Six of Swords in combination with our Five of Swords. So so one of the reasons I think we're seeing so much of this happening right now for the energy in separation has to do, we saw a bit of this coming up yesterday. As we described, there has been a lot of energy that is building new connections based on a lot of experiences from the past. And while we see that may have felt like it has been productive to a certain extent, I'm also seeing the fact that for some of the energy in that modality right now, there is that, I want to say, there is that like begged question to a certain degree that requires a point of clarification, because there's so much of this work that we see that has been built upon the past that there may be some anxieties or fears rising up in relationality to the direction that someone is desiring to go, right? So we see even now, it's almost like that reaffirmation in relationality to what is being left behind and what is being moved forward from this point is very important here. Because what we're identifying to a certain extent is some of this energy, even in separation, if there are new energetic connections that are being created right now via a lot of those experiences from the past, there is that like moment. And this is not surprising too, because we saw that a lot of energy over the last few weeks was navigating situations or circumstances wherein they felt like someone was halfway healed, or like not completely confident about the direction that they wanted to go into. This is why the ability to like talk about what you're hoping to manifest going forward is so important and vital at this time, because there's that moment that we could see that some of that vulnerability being expressed right now could be the articulation of someone feeling anxiety about the fact that another is talking with such discernment about the pathwork of the past, that there needs to be that validation point potentially reached to reassure others, the energy, like both energies, this is happening on both energies, that is a commitment about going forward. And that's always articulated and built upon talking about what that future holds. So even now, that ability to like start to talk forward on something, that ability to like express what you aspire and desire to see going forward, this could be one of those moments that we could start to see some energetic rifts occurring. Because if there's energy that's making connections with someone that is very, very good about talking about what they don't want from the past, but they're getting very hazy or showing an inability to articulate what they want in the future, this could be a lot of the energy that's starting to feel that sense of pulling back energetically, because it is that feeling of someone that isn't able to articulate on their manifestation goals, but just about what was wrong with what they had. So even now we see that there's a little bit of that energetic discernment that is occurring for a lot of the energy in separation right now, because the ability to look back on the past and say what is wrong is one thing. But without the ability to talk about what you would prefer, without the ability to describe what you would ideally like to manifest, that can almost identify an energetic equivalent of someone who doesn't necessarily know what they want, but they're very picky about what they don't want, right? That can also be halfway healed. So this energy is trying to discern whether someone has come into the ability of understanding and recognizing what it is they do want through the articulation of being able to like describe that or speak about it. Masculine and feminine energy. And that could be a little tricky right now, because for both masculine and feminine, there's almost a hesitancy there that needs to be overcome. Masculine, that ability of being vulnerable enough to express your dreams, again, pushing one's own envelope. Feminine, having the courage to articulate what it is that you truly desire and aspire from masculine. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is coming into the divine union, this is a lot of that work I'm seeing right now that has to do, like I said, a lot of this work coming into divine union right now is recognizing that you both aspire and desire, you have the same manifestation goals, but there's a lot of different ways to get to something. So we see even now that sense of being able to navigate through options, that ability to like explore options, but then select on choose a course of action to a certain extent. That is that sense. That is the validation. Like I said, that is the validation of a lot of energy that's moving deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency, because that is the energy that is leaning forward in that space of being able to articulate and to amplify and to experience all the options. And even recognize that it's okay if you have different ways of wanting to get somewhere, as long as you're headed in the right direction. But what is the amplification of the energy coming into divine union? An ability to talk about what it is that you aspire and desire, and then navigate through the hurdles And that in itself is a lot of energy that's moving deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency by, again, not feeling overwhelmed by the possibilities so much that you can't express them, but seeing the possibilities, being able to navigate in the direction and articulate what it is that you want to move forward into, and then just sharing in how to overcome any obstacles and challenges that may feel like they're problematic and being able to move in that direction. And we see even now, like, that's the energy that feels the relief if coming into the divine union frequency, that almost reminds them of past experiences wherein something would have been much harder because there would have been more of that energetic resistance from another in terms of actually sharing the manifestation goal. So even now, these are those moments that having the breakthrough, feeling that sense of excitement as you navigate forward with someone that you know shares the same desires and aspirations as you, it almost immediately triggers this energy, and remembering the spaces or places wherein, like, that same moment or modality would have felt like it was creating that sense of, like, you know, backwards, like, you know, like going backwards instead of forwards, which is, again, something that is starting to be struggled with some of the energy and separation, to see if that ability to do so is present. While for masculine and feminine energy, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is that moment of releasing a lot of pain, especially if these are spaces or places that you're now looking at from the past with all new clarity. And that's that moment that, again, for a lot of the energy coming into divine union, right, like deep in the heart of the divine union right now, I want to say a lot of that work, it feels very bittersweet, because recognizing and seeing something that you can't necessarily change from the past, it almost like you almost re-experience the wound in a different way. But even so, that is the affirmation of the energy doing so, with that sense of saying to oneself, the aspiration is not to prevent oneself from feeling something that hurts, but affirming to oneself that only by feeling something can you heal it and make sure that you don't continue forward and perpetuate something that may have created that wound in the first place. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Seven of Cups in its upright and our King of Cups in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Oh, I've got two cards again. All the double cards today. Clarification with our Eight of Cups in its upright and our Knight of Swords. What did I say right now? Masculine energy and feminine deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. This is the energy. This is like ripping of a Band-Aid kind of energy here, right? If this is the masculine energy that feels like they've been holding on to some wounds from the past because they didn't allow themselves to feel it, and they're now feeling that, like, easement point in having released something for the sake of healing it. This is the masculine that's like, I'm ready to do this with all of the things. And even now, this is the masculine energy that's feeling that frustration point potentially and wanting to do that, but also realizing, like, the emotional toll it takes in doing so, that might require a little bit of, like, you know, like time, effort, and energy, if you will, because that's that moment that like the determination is there, but the overwhelm, like, it's also a lot. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy doing so, it can feel like a little bit of a conflict point, because that's almost the masculine that's like eager to do it again, but recognizing that it's something, it's like the type of work, like that type of introspection requires like a good space and place to be in as one allows oneself to like do that type of work. It's not something that like you just can just navigate at every moment. While for feminine energy, this is that moment, like masculine's own recognition of being able to do it is in its way its own validation point, because that's the masculine almost saying to themselves, something that I can do once is something I can do again. It's not the fact that it's hard. It's the masculine feeling excitement, because that's the moment of masculine saying something that's hard is not something that's impossible. While for feminine energy, being able to do that same work, that is also the feminine energy. It feels a lot easier for the feminine because that's the feminine energy that's able to do that work much faster. Because I have to say, it's not creating the emotional overwhelm in the feminine to do that work. These were situations that were created because feminine was holding space and internalizing emotion that wasn't theirs to carry. So it's a little bit faster for the feminine to do that work because a lot of it potentially has to do with not letting their experiences with unhealed masculine energy affect their own ability of recognizing the fact that like experiences in that modality are not the archetype of every experience. It's just more of the feminine identifying and seeing it so that they can navigate forward from that point. So it's a little bit more of a faster lesson for the feminine. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. A lot of this work that we're seeing coming into divine union has to do with that feeling of determination in terms of how to navigate forward on a manifestation goal right now. This energy has been doing a lot of work in integrating each other's wounds, and we see even now, like, one of the things about that is the masculine's almost done that to a certain extent, and that in itself, it's like, it's something that we see to a certain extent. It's like masculine recognizes that they're still wrestling with to a degree, because there's moments that's like the masculine like either feels the emotionality of something or they'd like to activate upon it. So we see even now that that's like a lot of the masculine like working through that emotionality. While for feminine, that same work that we're seeing here has more to do with the feminine trying to be, I want to say, energetically supportive to masculine that's navigating that, because a lot of the feminine is also doing this work. This is all the energy coming into divine union whose perception of anything outside of the union has shifted to a certain extent. And this is the energy that's not trying to overly focus on the past, but keeping their eyes on the present is what's helping the energy navigate through any of the feelings of energetic sensitivity in relationality to anything in the past that they're trying to incorporate and experience, because that's almost the energy that's trying to like focus on what is productive as opposed to overwhelming themselves with what they feel like they can't change, right? So that's a lot of that idea of bringing oneself into productivity. A little bit easier for feminine today, a little bit more reactive for masculine. But both of these energies doing so in such a way that they're just concentrating on what they can like determine or what they can change. And that in itself, even if they have differing opinions on what that may look like or what that may be, feels affirming, because even those choices amplify that direction of going forward together. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, I have to say there's a little bit of energy here that may need a little clarification on manifestation goals today. Because especially if these are energies that have been building bridges on connection on how much they're trying to heal from the past, the validation point that the energy is seeking is whether someone can articulate on what they aspire and desire for the future to amplify the difference of encountering someone who is still healing from an experience, but they don't know what they want going forward, as opposed to an energy that is affirming what they were trying to move towards energetically with someone, but that they couldn't, right? And so we see even now that there's a little bit of clarity that some of the energy is receiving in relationality to the articulation of the path going forward right now, because so much of this energy right now has been building experiences and connectivity based on past shared perception in terms of what's experienced, that it needs to be articulated or balanced out by someone being able to talk about what they desire going forward. Because that's the difference between someone that is talking about something about the past to such an extent that it amplifies an ability not to let go, as opposed to the energy that is able to do that in two hands, which is able to like basically hold the past, use that as a tool to look at and identify what wasn't working to be able to manifest what they do want. So we see even now, there may be some moments right now of some energy getting a little triggered or frustrated if there's been some request in relationality to talking towards the manifestation goal, but not necessarily seeing the tangibility point, right? Because there's a lot of energy here that wants to make sure or wants to discern that the energetic equivalents that they're meeting at these times are not in that place of being like halfway healed, like willing to talk about what needed to change around something, but not ultimately ready to let something go. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Cups in its reversal and our Four of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Three of Cups. So why will this become, this is why the feminine energy right now in separation has no room for any masculine energy that isn't able to manifest forward or discuss what it is that they ultimately desire going forward. Because this is the feminine energy that has affirmed to themselves that if the masculine energy is resistant or reluctant or has an inability of making plans ahead of time, is working on short timelines, then that's a masculine energy that is not necessarily prioritizing the connection with feminine. So this is almost the feminine energy that's making that very clear to the masculine. And that's why we see even now that this is some feminine, there could be, like I want to say, there could be some slightly oppositional energy right now in separation, because this is the energy of the feminine almost saying like, listen, there's that modality of saying like you have to be able to speak towards the future. Like it's not just enough to talk about what's occurred in the past. You need to be able to facilitate and show me what that looks like in the future. Because now we see, and even the feminine saying like, this is almost the feminine articulating and saying to masculine in separation right now, like that to the feminine is one of the high priorities of a lot of the feminine in separation, saying a masculine energy that is able to prioritize the plans with the feminine as opposed to leaving oneself open and available to anything that is energetically around them. While for masculine right now, this could be a moment that, again, if these are spaces or places wherein you are feeling hesitancy talking towards the feminine and telling them your manifestation goals, this could be a masculine energy that's trying to clarify to feminine that that anxiety point that one is experiencing isn't based on a lack of plans. But again, this could be a lot of the masculine energy right now working up their own like emotional confidence to try to articulate to feminine what they are. But this is also that affirmation point to the masculine in separation on why it's so important to be able to have that sense of energetic courage to be vulnerable, to put oneself out there to the feminine, because this is almost a masculine in separation, recognizing that when the masculine lacks that emotional courage to be vulnerable, feminine always assumes that that's because the masculine is trying to leave themselves open to other possibilities. So we see even now that there could be a lot of the masculine trying to come into that point of clarifying or feeling the energetic courage to open up to feminine in that degree and capacity, because that's the masculine that's feeling the anxiety if on the healing journey of not wanting to be misunderstood or misconstrued to the feminine as someone who is not intentional as it relates to what it is that they aspire and desire going forward. While for masculine and feminine energy in the divine union or coming into the divine union, this is why the masculine energy feels so energetically protective of the feminine. Because why is the masculine navigating those wounds? Because this is the masculine almost has to inhabit and experience wounds that were placed in the feminine by unhealed masculine energy that made the feminine energy feel like they were an option, not a priority. So this is why we see that even in the masculine building this sense of like opening their heart space to the feminine, it's almost the masculine experiencing that in a degree that it almost feels like it happens to their own person, because this is the masculine coming to understand and see the energetic impact of that feeling or that experience and the wounds that it created in the feminine in the process. And that is the masculine that comes into that space or place of healing in relationality to wanting to be a part of the solution and not the energetic problem. While for feminine, these are experiences or modalities wherein, again, if this is the feminine energy that's experiencing that sense of masculine that has that level or degree of empathy towards the feminine in that way, then this is also the feminine energy that feels, even in the act of the masculine, expressing that to the feminine and reaffirming their own commitment that the feminine won't feel like that again. That sense of energetic security, because that is the feminine feeling like the masculine is basically articulating to the feminine and saying that, like, you know, I'm going to take that place or space that you feel is your insecurity, and I'm going to build a garden there. I'm going to show you that it's like, I'm going to show you like that is the place that I celebrate, those places that you feel those weaknesses on. I want to create strength. So both of these energies right now doing that work. And feminine, for their part, what is the feminine doing right now around the masculine's own doubts and fears? Feminine is creating that sense of energetic resilience and saying, I want to do that for you as well. While for masculine and feminine energy, that is deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, this path work, it feels so fundamental because I told you a lot of the energy right now, it's not that something stops hurting, right? It's not like doing something to this degree or working on one's own self to this capacity changes one's own direction. But sometimes healing comes in many forms, and the ability to recognize something that occurred in the past and perceive it in such a way that you feel like you have full clarity and understanding of it. That's that moment that this energy is going on that journey of the self to reaffirm their own commitment in not creating the environment wherein something that harmed them happens again. And that in itself feels like its own tangible victory, because that is the idea of the healer that goes forward and does not harm others in the process, and thereby, through the way that they move, amplifies the energetic healing. Continuing to clarification on these cards right now between our Queen of Wands in combination with our Six of Swords, in combination with our Five of Swords. So a lot of past unpacking today. One card to clarify, please. Two cards coming out. We cannot resist the two cards today. It's Gemini season starting. Two cards. Okay, thank you. All right, two cards. More two cards. We've got here our King of Pentacles in combination with our Sun card today. So, oh boy, guys, put me to work today. Jeez. Okay, hold on. All right, so let's get through this. All right, here we go. Masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. This is what creates, this is creating, okay, this is where it creates a little bit of a different energetic signature. I told you, for a lot of the feminine energy, what the feminine energy is trying to like pull back on is some of this healing for feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. It creates a moment of having to release energetic bitterness, because if this is spaces or places where feminine was holding blame of themselves, like that's where some wounds occurred. And that moment of externalizing something and saying in that point of observation that if you are judging yourself too harshly, it's because you were holding yourself to a standard that was outside of your own highest version of self, but rather one that you were trying to follow, that another was trying to dictate. This is the feminine coming into a pathwork of discernment and recognizing that the reason that some of the energy is the feminine is able to go through that process is by feeling the support of a masculine that is in the positive vibration. This is why it is so fundamentally helpful for the energy in the divine union frequency to have positive, healed, masculine energy around them as they partake in this work, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, because this is the feminine energy getting an affirmation and reminder that not all of the masculine energy is in that modality. So even having someone in that modality as the feminine does this work is what reaffirms the feminine's energy own ability to recognize and see it, because that is the energetic proof of concept for the feminine in saying, I see that such a thing is not always the standard, because that's the healed masculine that is supporting the feminine in this work, that helps the feminine be able to do this work, if you understand what I'm saying, right? Like it's not facilitated. It is not facilitated by the masculine, healed masculine energy, but having the template of healed masculine energy in the presence of feminine as they navigate through that type of deep path work is helpful because it reaffirms the feminine that such a thing exists. While for masculine energy, the same is true. For masculine energy, the same is true. If these are spaces and places wherein masculine feels that they were wounded by feminine energy that was holding a wound that was given to them by an unhealed masculine, having a feminine energy next to them, counterpart to them as they do this work, facilitates this work to be healing, because it is the reaffirmation to the masculine that not the feminine energy also has that capacity to do so, right? So both of these energies, again, it's the difference of saying that the energy isn't doing it because of the other, but it is facilitated by the productive pathwork of seeing the masculine and feminine energy in their point of healing that reaffirms the commitment in being able to do that type of energetic healing. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, that same work that we are seeing here is amplified again. The energy coming into divine union right now, that is that moment that feels, even here, like that energetic prioritization of the counterpart is something that feels like the prioritization point. And it's that reaffirmation of doing so that's helping a lot of the energy through those circumstances and situations that they feel like they can't necessarily change, that is via the experiences or the pathwork of the counterpart, but also one's own ability to identify it and reaffirm one's own sense of not repeating any kind of past harms or repeating any kind of past hurts. That in itself is the affirmation of the energy that is not focusing on the past, right? This isn't energy that's like going on some kind of crusade to like navigate forward or reopen wounds. This is energy that's almost reaffirming each other's commitment not to be the source of those wounds going forward. While for masculine and feminine energy that's in separation, this is a lot of the work of the energy in separation. And there may be a little bit, I have to say, there may be a little bit of this like heaviness that is entering. I want to say these are heavy conversations in separation right now that may require clarification or reaffirmation of pathwork and purpose, because these energies in separation have been doing so much work in speaking towards the past and seeing alignments in the lessons of the past, that ability to see something in such a way and then reaffirm the commitment of what it is that you aspire and desire going forward requires that energetic commitment in being able to like speak towards that with a sense of confidence. And it's a little bit harder for the feminine because the feminine really effectively wants to hear from the masculine, like what that looks like, what the shape of it is. And so for even now, you know, this could be a little bit more of that amplification of the hesitancy of feminine in building connections unless the masculine is clear about what it is that they energetically want to manifest going forward. Because this is that moment of the energy of the feminine trying to articulate and make sure that the masculine isn't coming towards them halfway healed, or masculine asking the same from the feminine. Both of these energies saying it's okay to be able to talk about the past. Can you articulate on what it is that you're seeking going forward that would amplify the ability of being too caught in the past, as opposed to being able to utilize that as a template to help build that perception of what it is that you're ideally seeking. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Six of Swords in combination with our Knight of Swords in combination with our Eight of Cups. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Eight of Cups. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. Like, this is a lot of the feminine energy potentially articulating their fears to the masculine. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. A lot of this feminine energy right now, I have to say, utilizing, and I want to put it this way, the feminine energy is utilizing that pathwork of discernment to a certain degree by advocating and stating to the masculine that a lot of the lesson of the energetic journey that may have led them forward at this time was masculine energy that seemed too focused on what just brought them pleasure, what just felt like it was energetically good, as opposed to actually having that plan as it relates to what it is that they were hoping to manifest from feminine. And so we see even now, this could be a lot of the feminine energy, if they're not getting that clarification point from the masculine, almost articulating to the masculine, relating and referencing experiences from the past in such a way that they're trying to amplify, that they're not necessarily assuming that the masculine is in that modality, but almost saying that this is the reason that the feminine has been having so many of these standards coming into play to a certain extent, because this is the feminine energy that again is articulating to the masculine, I don't want you just navigating and falling into line with what I want to manifest. I want to make sure that we're moving together into a manifestation, because this is almost the feminine articulating that a lot of that past path work may have felt like a lot of the masculine that was more focused on what felt easy or what felt good, as opposed to wanting to do the work that is necessary to be able to maintain a good, strong, viable connection. And we see even now there may be a lot of masculine energy that may be feeling very strong in trying to articulate to the feminine that they themselves are not in that modality, without feeling triggered by the feminine energy invoking or bringing back any of those past experiences. So I want to say right now, just a reminder, masculine energy, if the feminine energy is articulating something to you from their past that isn't a projection of them assuming that that is how you are or who you are, but that is almost the feminine almost articulating to you in a place of saying, I want to tell you about something that hurt me. I want to tell you about something that hurt me so that you can make sure that you are not going to hurt me by doing the same thing. So masculine energy, because I see a lot of potential triggers here being hit today in some conversations. Make sure that you don't get defensive if a feminine is articulating about those past experiences, but make sure that you're able to hold space and truly listen to what the feminine energy is trying to tell you in those moments, because that is almost the feminine energy that's trying to say to you effectively, I want to make sure that you have a dream, you have a manifestation goal. And that manifestation goal is beyond just having something in the tangible moment that feels good. That there's something that can be articulated in relationality to like what it is that you truly want in the long term with the connection with feminine. While for feminine energy right now, again, this might feel a little difficult for some masculine energy, because this is, again, remembering that a lot of the masculine energy is doing a lot of work trying to become vulnerable enough to express their own dreams and desires to the feminine. One of the things that could help with this feminine is by approaching the masculine with that sense of curiosity. So maybe not coming so much into an accusatory space of talking of experiences from the past and feeling defensive, but more leading with those energetic questions in such a way that you can kind of create a comfortable environment through which to discuss something, as opposed to one that may feel a little bit more defensive. Because I just see it right now. There's a little bit of this, like, that Gemini energy is already coming in right off the bat, with a little bit of that, like something just changed very quickly here, right? Like on a dime. So let's avoid that by being a little energetically mindful of navigating in such a way that it doesn't feel like it's triggering. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now. This is a lot of the energy of the masculine how do I put this? This is the masculine energy just feeling like they're like the masculine energy right now, just feeling like they're knocking down any of like hurdles that are stopping the masculine from moving towards what they aspire. Like the masculine, this is the type of energy. I just gotta say, there's a part of this energy for masculine coming into divine union right now, which is just like the kind of energy is like, can we just skip to the good part? Can we just skip to the good part? Can we just like move through all of the hard part and just get to the good part right now? So a lot of the masculine energy, again, there's something about the experience of the masculine energy and coming into divine union that is just almost seeing themselves on the other side of a hurdle right now. They're moving through something as quickly as possible because they're trying to navigate through any hurdles that'll prevent them from being in the energetic union with the feminine. And for feminine, it's much the same right now. For the feminine energy, you may be recognizing and seeing that masculine energy that's feeling more triggered, but they're trying to navigate, they're trying to put that energy into productive spaces and places. And so the feminine energy is trying to like lighten the spirits of the masculine in the process. But we see, and for the energy right now, and for the feminine, I mean, again, feminine seeing masculine that just is in that modality of just trying to like knock down hurdles. That's not necessarily something that is like, it feels like, I feel like it's the feminine energy seeing the fact that that they recognize that that's like the masculine energy, like almost channeling of something emotionally overwhelming into a place or space that it feels like it's more productive. While for masculine and feminine energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, this is a lot of the masculine energy. If there's a moment wherein you allowed yourself to feel something and now it feels lighter, this is almost the masculine energy, like reminding themselves, like it's not something that I feel like the masculine is ready to unpack at every moment, but just that assurance of masculine feeling like they did something. That's that sense of the masculine feeling the easement of saying something that was done once internally can be done again. And the same for the feminine. This is the feminine. Well, I mean, the feminine having that modality, it feels less like an emotional victory for the feminine, and it feels more of that act of energetic discernment, which is what's a little like, there's more gravitas for the feminine energy going through that, because it doesn't feel so much like an emotional breakthrough, so much as it feels like trying to navigate the complexity of emotions that may arise when you are able to externalize something that you are internalizing. And when you try to externalize something that you are internalizing, it becomes harder, because then you have to think about the energy of the motivations of the energy that made you have to internalize something in the first place. And that's very hard for the feminine. It takes a little bit more time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Swords, our hold on a minute, they were the Knight of Swords, the Six of Swords, the Eight of Cups, and the Three of Cups, because just a million cards. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Pentacles. And we love to see this card right now, because that's that moment, even the heart of the divine union frequency, the advantage. I told you, this is why it's so important to do work like this with productive, healed counterpart energy around you, because this is that moment that you can kind of like, you know, the reason that you can do this in such a way that it doesn't feel like it's overwhelming is feeling the grounded stability of the place that you're in at the moment, that helps you kind of like come back to yourself energetically in the process, right? Masculine and feminine doing this work with counterpart energy that feels like they're healed enough that they're also doing it. That's that moment of feeling the presence of the energy that is the oppositional to the energy that created the wounds in the first place, that like immediately kind of like brings one back to the reaffirmation of what can be healed when someone is committed to the idea and aspect of energetically healing something. So even now, we see that ability to almost express and communicate, you know, one's own feelings from that That's the energy that's like immediately almost rushing to the aid of one another and like reaffirming and saying like what you're experiencing is valid. And also like that commitment, much like the energy coming into divine union of saying what you experience there, you know, does not happen here. Like that is that moment that feels like so empowering, because it's that moment that you feel the immediate affirmation in the present of something that was almost energetically healed by the act of coming into healthy connection with counterpart energy. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, that is that equivalent of navigating forward in such a way that your manifestation goal is making things energetically easier, through which you can be in divine union in an easier way. Because a lot of this energy right now, like a lot of these hurdles that you're experiencing, they're either wounds that are brought in from outside of the divine union frequency that you're holding, almost wounds that others put there that you have to hold for the other, or this is energy that's navigating just obstacles and hurdles that have to be like navigated on the process of coming into partnership. And so that's that moment that's almost like that reaffirmation of commitment and saying like everything else is difficult except for the connection with the counterpart. While for masculine, and because that's the energy that like is focused on building towards that manifestation goal together. And even if they have differences or disparities on how to achieve it, they both know what it is. They both share that dream. They share that vision. They share that aspiration together. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, there's a little bit of like reality. I got to say this in like the nicest way possible. I feel like there may be a few reality check conversations that are arriving right now to some energy in separation. Specifically in relationality, if there's been a lot of that active conversation or a lot of that work of unpacking things from the past, it needs to be balanced out by talking about what is the desire and aspiration for the future. So if there's energy right now that is overly fixated on talking about the past and building the bridge about the past and talking about the past, this is almost the energy that's saying, well, that's all well and good, but the sign of energy that's truly ready to progress is talking about what it is that you want moving forward, right? So this is almost that energy that's saying the bridge, like you can build the bridge halfway. You can build half the bridge by talking about what occurred in the past. The only way you can finish the rest of the bridge is if you can start to talk about what's going to happen in the future. So this is the energy saying like, can you get over that hump? Can you get over the hump of being overly focused on what happened to you? And start talking about what you want to happen to you, right? Can you start to talk about what you want to happen to you? So we see even now that a lot of that energy is almost trying to facilitate that conversation by saying like, you know, well, what was your ideal from that point? What do you want to change now? Like how does that bring forward here? Show me what that is in the tangible. So we see a lot of that work right now. And for feminine, that is the feminine bringing into that act of rest of discernment, almost saying to the masculine, like, look, you seem great, but I need to see your own ability in telling me what you want to manifest. While masculine, that is that moment for masculine of recognizing and saying, I don't want you to misunderstand and feel like my own inability to express what I want to manifest is me trying to keep my options open. This is the masculine that's almost recognizing and saying, I need to be articulate on what I want. Again, it's a reminder to the masculine saying, the only way I can have what I desire with the feminine is by telling the feminine what I dream, is by telling the feminine what it is that I truly want. But that feels very vulnerable for a masculine. And even now it feels like the masculine trying to like not become reactive, but almost be that emotionally expressive point and being able to really articulate what it is that they desire with the feminine that sometimes feels very energetically triggering. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Pentacles and our Sun card in combination with our Page of Cups. Can I please have one card to clarify? We've got here our Eight of Swords. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now. This is what this is what we're seeing with a lot of the energy, especially if there have been some of these new connections that are occurring right now. in relationality to building some of those bridges from the past, because what we're effectively seeing to a certain extent is a lot of the energy of the feminine utilizing that pathwork of discernment. A lot of the energy of the feminine continuing to learn those lessons from the past and separation, and basically saying, like, the feminine energy is not seeking anything from the masculine to a certain degree, right? Like, that's what's important about this. This is not feminine energy that feels like they need masculine energy in order to facilitate forward on their manifestation goals. This is a lot of the feminine energy that is consciously moving forward on those manifestation goals presently. What the feminine energy is trying to avoid is anything that feels like it's going to hinder their own healing journey. This is feminine energy that doesn't want to go back to the same situations or circumstances through which they've tried to move into that moment of energetic recovery on. And so we see even now, the reason that the feminine energy is almost looking towards masculine to articulate what those manifestation goals are. It's not the feminine energy that is demanding like commitment from those places, right? This is almost the feminine energy looking towards the masculine and saying, I'm not asking for these things from you now. I want to know what the shape of those are. I want to know what they look like. I want to know what your aspiration is. Because the feminine energy recognizes and realizes the difference between masculine energy that they're building energetic connections with, but has an idea and understanding of what they ultimately want going forward, and shares that vision and aspiration with the feminine, versus the energy of the masculine that may be more reluctant to reveal their manifestation goals because they're not necessarily in a place or space where they have manifestation goals, but their manifestation goal is their own personal pleasure. Like, the feminine just realizes that there's some masculine energy, that their manifestation is just seeking what is going to be pleasurable to them. So we see even now, this is almost a feminine energy saying, look, I don't know what the shape of it is. I just want to know what it is so I can understand like what the shape of like, this is the feminine energy saying, so I can identify and feel that sense of energetic consent as it relates to how I navigate forward with you. For masculine energy, we are seeing that a lot of the energy in separation right now is feeling that weight of the feminine, like asking you to be open in that capacity. And what we see even now for the masculine is that's that moment that it feels like the masculine is feeling that sense of anxiety and recognizing and identifying that might be the moment that when you are open and honest with the feminine about what it is that you aspire and desire, feminine might not be invested in it. But again, this is the masculine also healing in separation, but by reminding themselves that if this is a feminine that's not invested in terms of like what it is that you want, then that's not necessarily a place or space where the feminine is rejecting you, so much as you're recognizing that you're not in alignment in relationality to something that you're trying to create with the feminine that would be positive and productive and mutually agreed upon, versus something of the feminine feeling like they weren't necessarily, they feel like they were misled or put in a position that they didn't want to be in. So we see even now that this is the masculine, both of these energies implementing the lessons from the past, masculine not wanting to build a world of illusion around the feminine, and feminine articulating and telling the masculine that their ability to articulate on what it is they're trying to manifest, this is how these energies are bringing forth the lessons to make sure that there's that feeling of energetic alignment going forward. The energy in coming into divine union right now, this is that same modality. The difficulty for a lot of the masculine energy is recognizing that a lot of the wounds that the feminine is carrying into the divine union, you feel like you didn't energetically put there. You feel like that moment that you're experiencing those painful moments because the feminine is feeling those limitations or hindrances or wounds you're carrying, it's almost like you're experiencing them for the sake of the feminine, because that's the feminine energy that you're like holding all of those wounds on. And that's where we see even now, that's the masculine energy feeling that reaffirmation to show the feminine that those places and spaces that created those wounds in them are not in fact going to be that point, but instead that's the masculine saying, I'm going to take those places that like someone told you you were less than, and I'm going to build a garden there. I'm going to take those moments that felt like they created harm for you, and I'm going to show you how beautiful they can be. So that's almost, again, the masculine energy coming to that point of building forward, trying to feel the overwhelm of experiencing the wounds of the feminine, while at the same time reinvesting in their own sense of energetic commitment to building better towards the feminine. But even here, that is hard because this is the masculine that is feeling that level of frustration, so much so that it's like the moment of how they might navigate or handle something is different versus how they know the feminine is or must carry something. While for feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this is again that feeling of frustration in relationality to what you necessarily can't control. But what is the feminine energy doing at this time? This is the feminine energy that is working through a lot of that mentality, because this is the feminine that is feeling almost energetically triggered by the situations of the present. And that's the feminine energy reaffirming their own sense of stability by reaffirming to themselves that sense that they're doing enough work on their own energetic resilience, that the feminine energy is continuing to work with masculine to find those points of positivity that are helping the feminine through their own self-doubts, their own anxieties, and their own fears. While for the energy right now, deep in the heart of the divine union, a lot of this work that we see that is occurring right now is that moment of having healed something that you were carrying for a long time. And that is a bit different for masculine. For masculine, it's feeling more like an energetic breakthrough point. For feminine, it feels more like a hurdle, because the way that you're seeing something doesn't necessarily make it easier. It feels more energetically frustrating because it feels like it's something that you didn't see before. Final cards for today's spread between, oh my gosh, these two cards together. Between our 8 of Swords and our 9 of Pentacles. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our star in its reversal. So masculine and feminine energy, this is what I mean about the work on the quantum level right now for the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency. For the masculine energy, that sense of healing, it feels like it's being conveyed with more of a point of energetic empathy. Because if these were spaces or places wherein the masculine is healing something in such a way that you're not feeling so much of that act of energetic, of rejection, that's that moment that almost feels like that healing is being demarcated by a moment of being able to look at something with a point of forgiveness, right? Like if you have empathy for something that, from someone who energetically hurt you, like that's almost the moment that you can allow for some point of forgiveness to come in. So this is a little easier for masculine energy doing this. Whereas for feminine, if these were spaces or places wherein you are holding yourself too energetically accountable for something that feels like you are not matching the standards or the desires or the needs of energy around you, that doesn't feel so much like a point of needing to adopt a place of forgiveness. It feels more about that sense of feeling the energetic violation of one's own sense of self not being the goal and aspiration of the energy that may have created the wounds in you in the first place. So you can see how that can feel very different depending on where you are energetically. And it requires different processing. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is that moment that we see even now. For masculine energy, that feeling of energetic protectiveness over the feminine, navigating their wounds, making them your own. It's that moment that it feels very frustrating, because it's that moment that, again, it's like that sense of caring to such a degree for the energetic counterpart, but also not wanting to get overprotective, right? That's that moment where it's like the masculine is like trying to navigate in such a way that they don't want their care to feel like it is curtailing or creates the wound in the first place, because that's a masculine recognizing that some of the wounds in the feminine were created by masculine energy that was unhealed, that had that sense of overprotectiveness that sometimes creates those wounds. So that's a masculine that's like almost reaffirming the commitment of creating a garden in a place that someone was trying to create, like the opposite of a garden towards the feminine. Like that's a masculine saying, I don't want you, this is, I don't want you to feel like I am, like, you are not a possession, you are a prize kind of energy that the masculine's trying to convey to the feminine. But that's hard because that's the masculine also feeling re-triggered by the wounds of the feminine that has experience that made them feel like they were there in the first place. While it's for feminine energy coming into divine union, that perspective of experiencing something, building that sense of value, of feeling valued, that's also shifting your own perspective, right? Because what we're effectively seeing even now is that the feminine, much like we saw a lot of the energy in the divine union, navigating experiences from the past with a new perspective that shifts one's own perception on what may have occurred previous. While for masculine and feminine energy, in separation, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, this is a lot of energy in separation right now. And this is the feminine energy that is almost building this sense of clarity towards the masculine. If these are new energetic connections that are occurring, which is again the feminine saying to the masculine, it's okay to talk about, it's okay to be aligned in terms of what wasn't working in the past, but that needs to be amplified with what is working in the present, right? The feminine's like, it's okay to talk about this, but I need to see this as well. Because this is almost the feminine articulating to the masculine and saying, like, I've met a lot of masculine energy that's halfway healed. You've done a lot of work in unpacking what wasn't working in the past, but one's own ability to amplify what it is that you want in the future is like the other half of that energetic connection. While for masculine energy in separation right now, that same feeling or that same equivalent feeling is there and present right now towards the feminine. And a lot of that is being amplified in that sense of, again, this is masculine not wanting to repeat the same experiences from the past, not wanting to be in a space or place where their own inability to communicate forward, their own anxiety, their own vulnerabilities prevent them from creating the space or place of the feminine, knowing what it is occurring or knowing what they're building towards. So even now it's hard because that's the masculine that's almost feeling the weight of the anxiety of a feminine that, like in the expression of a dream, may articulate and say, that's not my desire. But that's also the masculine that recognizes that that ability of the feminine to articulate that is the gift of the masculine, understanding the sense of connectivity in relationality to experiencing something that feels like the feminine has that clarity, building with the feminine as opposed to building around them. Final card for today's spread is Hangman in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy, I mean, across all the frequencies, we saw there's just been a lot of path work that has been occurring just in relationality to closing out and clearing some energetic cycles. Like the energy deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, that ability to let go of something that you may have been holding on to a very large degree from the past. That's that moment that you can sometimes feel like a little untethered, right? Because that's that moment that, like, the way you were perceiving something had such like a strong like identification point on your own person. That can almost be the amplification of saying to oneself, like, without that pain, who am I, right? While for the masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, this is that modality that we see, that sense of finding the energy of the counterpart. It's like that opening up in terms of like what the possibilities are and how you're navigating them. It's like it's opening up a whole new like variety of challenges that you may not necessarily have experienced so significantly when you're on your own healing journey. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, there's a lot of amplification in wanting to make sure someone isn't halfway healed. which is again the identification of someone who's done the work to recognize what was wrong around a circumstance from the past, but is still holding on to the hope of something opening back up to such a degree that it doesn't feel like they're utilizing it as a tool to move forward, so much as they're still in that construct of waiting for something to come back. So we see across all of them right now that point of clarification is being met in terms of amplifying and being able to articulate what one's own perception and direction is. And that can be very challenging. So everyone needs to use their words today, but not in a way that feels like it is reactive, but in a way that feels like it is positive and restorative and helpful. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never reach out to you for a reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. Also, just a couple of notifications for you guys today. First and foremost, thank you again to everybody who joined us for our class this past Wednesday. I had such a wonderful time talking about the magician. And I hope that you guys will join us at our next class, which is on Wednesday, June 16th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. That next class will be on the High Priestess. I'm really looking forward to that class. And all you need to do to become a part of those classes is become a paid subscriber to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription will grant you access not only to the free live class each month, but also to all of the course materials and recordings of the previous classes. So if you missed our first two classes, The Fool and the Magician, you've got plenty of time to get up to date. You will also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students where you can ask any questions in relationality to anything that we're learning. And also, if you decide to become a founding member to my Substack, not only do you get a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you also get a free 1-hour mentorship reading with me, wherein we will assess where you are on your own tarot journey, and I'll give you the best insights on how to take the classwork and where you might want to concentrate to help amplify that work going forward. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that we have announced the winner to last month's contest for a free 15-minute tarot reading. You can find that video over on my TikTok. We have a new contest that we are currently doing. All you need to do to enter that contest is head over to the link in my bio and fill out the 2-minute travel survey that you'll find there. This contest is a little bit different than last month. I am giving away not one, but 2 free 15-minute readings to whomever wins that giveaway, and then to whoever referred the individual to take the survey. So if you've already taken the survey and would like more chances to enter, all you need to do is forward that to some friends. For every friend that takes the survey, you will also receive an additional entry in our giveaway. Again, I'm really looking forward to putting together these tarot retreats for you guys. I have a few ideas on where I might like to go, but I want to know where you want to go. So I want to thank you guys in advance if you've already taken the survey, and thank you to anyone who you might forward it over to. That said, we are also offering a couple new offerings over on my website. First one being tarot mentorship. I am now offering one-on-one classes wherein I can teach around any subject that you yourself are interested in. I need to stress that those mentorship classes are very limited. I'm only taking on a very small amount of students. So if you want to do so, you can purchase them on either an individual level, or you can buy them per month, which is 4 45-minute courses each week, and those are purchased at a discount. Also, for those of my clients that are looking for more consistent weekly tarot updates, we are now offering weekly tarot insights. Those are weekly tarot packages that you can purchase on a month-to-month basis, wherein you can purchase a package of 4 30-minute readings, one per week for each month, that will give you a little bit more consistency in being able to follow your own tarot journey. Again, I want to thank you guys so much. A lot of these new courses and offerings are coming from direct requests from my clientele, so thank you guys so much. That is it for us today. I hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. Please take care of each other, and we will do this again tomorrow.